Good afternoon. This is Professor Grove with a tutorial on how to utilize JSTOR for your research paper. So again, JSTOR is a really solid academic database in many regards, but it's probably not the database where you want to start your research process off because the source material contained in JSTOR is usually pretty complicated. It's pretty difficult to read, and it skews heavily towards academics. As a result, it often is highly specialized and really useful for investigating particular points of discussion that your other sources might have revealed. It's usually highly reliable and highly authoritative, but it's a bad place to start looking because it's just not a great way to get an overview of a topic. So I'm going to show you how to get to JSTOR from this menu, and I'll go over some basic searches with you in JSTOR. Alright, so navigating the database list from BCC's database sort of like directory here, it's pretty simple. You just use it alphabetically. So here JSTOR is located under J. If we click on it, you get the same kind of plain search bar that you would normally get with any database. And again, if we do a general search, we'll get like a ridiculous number of sources. If you get like 100,000 results on any search you do in any library database, you're probably going to have to spend more effort looking through those sources than you would have to spend just actually reviewing them or refining your search tags. You'll be better off just changing your approach altogether. But as you can see, there's a ton of really useful limiters here, and some of them we'll probably want to use because they'll help us get sources that are a little bit more current. You probably don't want to use a source that is older than you for this paper. So like some of you guys were born after the year 2000, so like this one would be especially bad. 2003, probably going to be pretty bad too. You want to try and limit things when it's pertinent. There are ways you can use older sources in a research paper, but I wouldn't recommend trying to do that in a research paper where you're trying to engage in a discussion of a contemporary issue to try and make a point. It's useful if you want to try and like talk about a historical trend pertinent to your subject. So let's go to the advanced search tag and go over just how to actually use these limiters. As you can see, JSTOR, much like Academic Search Complete, has these handy advanced search bars that just let you establish different topics. So we can do gun control and United States. And let's go with suicide. Now, the limiters in JSTOR can be a little bit different than other databases because the presumption is that all these sources are scholarly in the first place. As you can see, by default, content I can access is set up as like the limiter here, which is kind of cool. You can turn it to all content if you want to make your life a little bit more difficult, but I wouldn't recommend doing so. I would recommend limiting things to articles. Reviews, books, research reports, pamphlets, and miscellaneous will sometimes reference material that is academic article adjacent, but not necessarily useful for this class. Reviews, for instance, will link you to book reviews, where someone might talk about a book on the subject that you are like studying, and that'll often look really easy to access and understand because it'll usually be about a page to 2 pages long. But those book reviews are almost worthless when you're writing a research paper. It basically gives you a soundbite that often doesn't have anything to do with what you're talking about, and it's often strongly divorced from the context you're writing in. So I recommend limiting your searches in JSTOR to articles. Here we're going to do just a search from 2010 forward. And one cool thing you can do in JSTOR is you can also limit your search by subject matter. I'm not going to do that here. But if you're getting way too many search results, like that 100,000 search result you just saw, this is a good way to make sure you trim it down a little bit. So, as you can see, limiting it to these 3 elements, and then, knocking it down to 2010 helps a little bit, but it's not perfect. As you can see, the first hit we got has relatively little to do with the United States, although it might attempt to discuss those in a parallel way. Um, yeah, here we have just a really wide variety of articles. Most of which look like they probably would be useful for research papers with particular focuses. Um, and again, this is a good thing to do late in the game. For instance, here, if you're looking at maybe if gun control has had any impact on suicide rates, firearm background check and suicide might actually discuss that. Gun utopias, firearm access and ownership in Israel and Switzerland. You guys might be like, wait, what? Why are they talking about those countries? Um, if you study this issue, you'll find out that Israel and Switzerland, along with a few other countries, have comparable rates of gun ownership to the United States, but they don't have comparable rates of gun violence. And as a result, they are frequently used as parallels when discussing policy shifts in the United States. So, clicking around to articles like these could help you learn more about the subject that you're attempting to engage with, but it really works best if you have some sort of base knowledge before you begin searching in here. But as you can see, the limiters are actually really close to what you use in Academic Search Complete. They're just a little bit more refined. All right, that's all I'm going to do on this database. I hope this was kind of helpful, but honestly, I recommend using JSTOR kind of as a database of last resort, just because of how difficult the material is. If you do have any questions, you should definitely follow up with me. JSTOR is one of those databases where the records are going to be a lot harder to read than the articles will be to find. So if you look at this, you'll see that this has relatively technical language compared to a lot of the sources that you might find in Academic Search Complete, and it's definitely more technical than what you'll find in the next database we're going to be discussing, opposing viewpoints.